Subjects options at 16. It's common to think that as the Moresby profile is usually completed in year 10 or year 9, but it's a subject selection system. Well, it does rank order subjects according to suitability to the student's profile, but it was definitely not designed to be a dedicated subject selection product. There are a few reasons for this. There is no way to make some subjects mandatory in the list, so you can't force an English or a maths to be chosen, for example. There's no way of filtering for or warning about duplicates. So if somebody is choosing PE, biology, HHD and a health or biology related vet subject, there wouldn't be any warnings. There's no way of limiting the number of vet subjects chosen. So a student could choose 2 or 5 or 10 vet subjects. There's no way to force a certain number of subjects to be chosen, so students may choose none. They might choose 3 or 7 or 10 or 15, etc. And also there's a lot of grey area in terms of whether subjects like physics, chemistry and a harder maths appear as a strong match in this list, largely as people are complex, and here we're looking at a range of relevant factors, but not academic attainment, quality teaching, motivation and drive, etc. This means that there's a significant range of aptitude scores that could be found amongst students who thrive in a subject and students who struggle in that subject. Who's to say that a student with broadly average aptitude scores can or cannot successfully take chemistry, for example, just based on aptitudes? For some students with this level of aptitude, this would be a total fantasy, while for others, with hard work and the right support, it would be a real possibility. These system and real-world limitations do not mean that the tab is not of value, simply that it's designed more of a starting point for discussion and to make sure that all subjects are considered in the subject selection process. One benefit is that it does offer the ability for students to record their intentions, even though these might change, which if used diligently by students with a structured approach can give schools some idea up front, many months ahead of the normal process, of which subjects students are considering. And that's because you can run a frequency report based on what students are saying they're interested in taking. But it falls a long way short of being a dedicated subject selection tool that could replace what the school currently does. The relevant subjects for your state will be listed here, and if there are more than one subject regime, so for example you could be running IB as well as VCE, then there can be a switch here that will allow you to switch between them. And subjects not presented still remain searchable as long as the student knows what they're looking for. Now, the certified user can turn on and off these subjects based on whether they're available at school or not, and they can also make decisions about whether all the vet subjects are listed or just the ones that you provide in-house or students regularly go to if they're leaving school. There are 80 odd subjects listed for Victoria, for example. If you do hide any, down the bottom there's a search box, and as long as the student knows what they're looking for, they can easily find it in the search box. Of course, if they don't know what they're looking for, they won't be able to find it. And for example, you could, if you hid some vet subjects, you could, here we've hidden vet building and construction, you can search on something like vet and get a whole list of possibles. Now, despite what I said about chemistry, there are some algorithms in the system around level of profile. So let's look at this. For students where the aptitudes are average or below, any subject scaled up in Victoria is demoted in the list. So the subjects will just appear, but they'll appear lower down than they would be for an above average profile. To give an example, if somebody's in the bottom 5 or 10% of the population, they're not going to get maths, methods, chemistry, physics right at the top of the list of their subjects. The other way round also works. For students who have a fair or low level of aptitude scores, the 4 VCAL streams in Victoria will rise up the list, but no adjustment is applied where vet subjects are concerned. So very high academic performing students may have a list dominated by vet subjects, depending on the profile shape and their interests. And this would apply particularly to strong science students due to the technical nature of many vet subjects. If you click on one of these subjects, there's a description of it, And at the top, if it's been set up by your certified user, you can put some additional information in here for students, including links, for example, to an internal curriculum document. And you can also add little labels and descriptors after the main subject. So if it's on a certain campus, or if it only runs if there's a certain demand, you could put some information in here for students, and they can say whether they're interested in taking this subject or not. Decisions made here do not affect the career decisions. So, for example, if you decided to choose a whole series of humanities and arts subjects, but your aptitudes, interest and personality was suggesting a whole series of science careers, you'd still get those science careers even if you haven't made the subject choices which match in with them. So all in all, you can see there are multiple variables at work here, and perhaps the best way to use this list is to identify subjects that may be prerequisites or desirable for any favoured careers. So clearly you'd look at what the student's interested in, you then look at the careers, and if certain careers really require or often require specific subjects, you'd make sure the students are aware of that. And the other thing, of course, is that if you're choosing subjects well down in the list, there'd need to be a reasonably good reason for doing that, because these are the subjects which seem to match the student less well, and as a result they may not find them as easy as some of the subjects higher up the list. End of module.